Welcome to the third episode of the Global Communications Podcast. My name is Sandra Coyle, founder of Coyle Communications. I'm honored to have with us today Mr. Saleem Samed, General Secretary at the Forum for Freedom of Expression in Dhaka, Bangladesh. He is an award-winning Bangladesh-born investigative journalist. He received several accolades and achievements in his career. Saleem was an advisor on media and communications strategy to many international organizations, including USAID, UNICEF, Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, and Dubai Cares. He has more than 35 years' experience in investigative journalism in South Asia, reporting on conflict, security, forced migration, Islamic jihad, good governance, elective democracy, and press freedom. Thank you so much for joining us today, Saleem.
Thank you for inviting me, Sandra.
So tell us more about Bangladesh, its geographic location, history, and current context, so we can place it for people who are listening.
Okay, I don't want to bore the viewers or the audience, but in very short, Bangladesh is actually 4.6 times smaller than Texas state. So, and the population is 160 million plus. We don't have a census maybe next year. And the geographical location is actually on the foothills of Himalaya, and we are surrounded by our largest neighbor called India. And it is literally at the confluence of the three yawning rivers, which is all the way coming from China, India, Nepal, and it's draining through Bangladesh. So obviously, it is now one of the largest delta other than the Amazon or even Mekong Delta. And secondly, it has the rivers. In fact, that is one of the reasons the green farmlands are underwater, especially in the monsoon right now in the month of July. And this is happening. The country is actually also have the largest mango forest, the home of the Royal Bengal tiger. In fact, 1/4 the Sundarban forest, we share 1/4 with India, and the rest is in Bangladesh. So obviously, majority or most of the people who, when you talk about tiger, they think it is all from India. I mean, India is actually of course, the owner of the tigers, but the tigers doesn't have a passport, or they don't need a visa, they don't have a borderline, so they just cross. So it is very difficult to have an actual census of the tigers. But that's not really important. The most important is that the British Raj, the British colony, was ruled this subcontinent called India or South Asia for more than 200 years. In 1947, when the British Raj decided to leave and return to London in their headquarters, so the India split into two countries. One is for the Muslims in Pakistan, and unfortunately, Bangladesh became the eastern province of Pakistan, being under a strict Islamic country. In 1970, the military ruler in Pakistan, there was a big student revolt, and they had to have election. And after 23 years of the independence of Pakistan, there was election. And election, fortunately, again, the leaders from the eastern province became the majority singular party in Pakistan. The Rawalpindi, the military hawks in Islamabad, did not like it. So they had to crack down. And the Pakistan Army in 1971, brutal, wanted to suppress the political dream to have an independent democratic country. So that crackdown, in fact, led to a guerrilla warfare, and Bangladesh was independent in 9 months. But during that 9 months, 3 million people were martyred, or they died because of genocide. And of course, 400,000 women were, rape was used as a weapon of war. I mean, there are no other description because this is a war crimes definition of rape as a tool of war crimes in 1971. Well, so since 71, Bangladesh became the first Muslim majority country to be a secular and a democratic country. I don't believe there is a second or a third country. There may be second, but impossible to find a Muslim majority or a Muslim country to have a secularism and democracy. So that is a very short of Bangladesh, and the recent, the current situation is very interesting because uh, we have only despite being a Muslim country which is supposed to be very conservative, very much misogynist, but we have a woman prime minister for the fourth time elected recently again, I mean, back to power. So this is a short brief about Bangladesh.
Thank you. And what is the population of Dhaka, the capital? It's quite large, right? Is it 20 million?
Yes, we have 160 million population all over the country. I mean, you can understand the size of 4.6 times lesser than Texas, but Dhaka population is around more than 10 million.
10 million. Okay, great. And you became an investigative journalist in Bangladesh, but also covering South Asia for now 35 years. This was just after independence. So can you first give us an explanation of countries that cover South Asia? You hear Asia, Southeast Asia. Can you give the audience just a brief description of the area that you've covered as a journalist?
Okay, in fact, South Asia is an artificial geographical name for the region. In fact, it was South Asia. It was only one country before, when the British colony was in this region. Like South Asia comprised of today is Pakistan, India, of course, and Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bhutan. There's a small princely state in the foothills of Himalaya, which is just north of my country. But recently, Afghanistan was also included because Afghanistan was left out from all other regional cooperation. So geographically, not only geographically, but politically, we have 7 states, which includes Afghanistan. Then let me again, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Maldives, Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan.
Great. Thank you so much.
So that's Bangladesh. But we have a very common culture, common almost language that we each understand. And we have, of course, the Bollywood movie is the most popular crush for the teenagers, and so of course everything is Bollywood. I believe it's also in other South Asian countries. It's very influenced by that culture of Bollywood, which is a fashion, and of course the language has also been very popular because of these Bollywood movies.
I started watching Bollywood movies about a year ago here in East Africa because there's channels for Bollywood.
Oh, yes.
So I highly encourage those who haven't watched Bollywood films, please do. It's fascinating to watch. You learn a lot by watching it. And I think they're better than Hollywood productions. They're quite impressive overall. So what made you decide to become a journalist in the 70s? What was that spark that made you decide this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Sometimes I forget why I am in this profession. And you would be very excited, I mean, Sandra, that I haven't changed my profession. Many had to change profession. Many had to do a lot of things in between journalism. For some reason, it didn't happen with me because the only trade I know is what to write and how to write. So, but coming to this world, I mean, yes, when I was a very young, just at the border, I just crossed the border of the teenager. I joined the guerrillas in 1971, and I was very young. But I was fortunately during the interview, by a military officer, rebel military officer. He was asking me in English because they are not very familiar with this, our local language. So he was asking in English and I was responding in English. And then he looked at me. He said, "Where did you study?" So I mentioned a school which is in fact a military school. And of course, he's very familiar with that military school. "Oh, so that's an English school." I said, "Yes." "So you must be also speaking Urdu." And Urdu, the language spoken by the Pakistani military as well as the Pakistan population. I said, "Yes." So he started speaking in Urdu as a part of an interview. And then he decided that he will send me back to Dhaka, to the capital. I said, "Oh my God." So the Pakistan military is hunting and they are killing people who are in pro Bangladesh, or you just name any word, or they are fighting for the cause or fighting for a political decision to make a democratic country. So I said, "No way, I'm not going back to Dhaka." And the second thought, I thought that maybe I have not been enlisted as a guerrilla, because if I return to Dhaka means I'm not in the guerrilla camp. I'm not going to be trained with weapons. So they said, "No, I need somebody who speaks English, understands English, and also can understand and speak in Urdu, because we need." I mean, I was not a spy, but I was in the intel. I'm intelligence and logistics. So I was one of the few person who was back in Dhaka, deployed by the guerrilla commanders to just to do army, not a spying, because nobody will interact with us. It is something like doing an advanced reconnaissance for operation. So there was hit and run operations in the city to demoralize the regime, and of course to boost the morale of the Bangla speaking people who were secretly or favoring the independence of Bangladesh. So there were two issues together. So there were a lot of hit and run, but there were very less casualty in the 9 months of the war in Dhaka city. The only was always a loud bang. Bang means explosion. So it was always, and before the explosion, of course, the area was announced that leave this market, we are going to bomb it. So of course, there were very few minutes left. So I was not only in charge of doing a reconnaissance, but I also had to give a report. So every time I wrote a report, it was typewritten. Of course, there was a typewriter. So it was in typewriter, and that has to be in English. So that, in fact, when I came back, came back means once it's independent, the commander said, "Yes, I remember you. Your report was one of the best. Are you a reporter?" So that never occurred to my mind. I thought, why not a reporter? So I was guerrilla with the guerrillas in the logistics and intelligence. So I just, within a few months, I was able to join a weekly newspaper we just launched after the independence of Bangladesh in 1972. But of course, I was a very tiny reporter, you can understand. And it was very difficult for me to understand what to write. Forget about what to write, but how to write. So it took a lot of time. It took many years, in fact, because I was on job training, so I didn't have to go back to, and there was no journalism school at that time. Journalism school is only a recent factor in Bangladesh.
That's fascinating. So knowing how to write is a good skill, I think, for everyone. And knowing other languages can often pay off in terms of finding careers, I think, for young people as well. So let's talk a bit more about that, because you've been in the field now for many years. How have you seen journalism transform from when you were that young man training on the job to today in Bangladesh and also globally? What's different about it in terms of, I imagine you started at a paper that you mentioned, but I believe, did you go into TV and do broadcast or radio journalism, or are you strictly a newspaper journalist?
Fortunately, I was all through my life in print media. But of course, I did a lot of stories for only one television channel called the Channel 24, sorry, Channel 4 in London, a private channel. Apart from BBC, Channel 4 is supposed to be a very popular channel in Britain. So I worked for them. And of course, there was always a cameraman, and always there was somebody to do the pitch, the stories. So I was mostly doing the legwork, and I was doing this local interviews, interviews as well as interpreter. That I did for several years. And that also had another reason that I will tell you later. Later means in a minute. So that was, I was, because, and to be very frank, Bangladesh didn't had a private TV and a private radio. So that it's only happened when there's a democratic government. We had a democratic regime after the war, but unfortunately there were three consecutive military regimes in this country. So obviously, when the military regime has had to leave after a very series of pro-democracy movement, the first elected government in 1992, yes, in 92, they first gave permission to, or license, you can say, to private TV channels. So so private TV channels are now a vibrant, it's a very vibrant media right now, because in this coronavirus, people who are in home quarantine or also in lockdown, the only thing they could do is just switch on the television, and they have a news channel, so you can understand. Even there is something else, is something that you always can read at the scroll. So obviously, it is very important, and of course, newspaper is is going through a lot of crisis in the media. Not only the financial crisis, but it's very difficult to distribute. It's very difficult to get the papers in an apartment, because most house security guards doesn't allow the delivery guys. So that has definitely shrunk the newspaper circulation by 1/5, most of the newspaper. And obviously there was no advertisement right now, no revenues. So in this crisis, the only possibility is, of course, you have to change your journalism. You have to change. May not be changing your profession, but you have to change your style to reach the people who are at home. Maybe they are going to happen for another end of this year. You bet. So obviously your journalism has to change, dramatically change. Otherwise, you will be thrown out of this profession, or you will be totally unemployed, or you will be totally been outcast by the editors. That I don't need you, because you are not being able to cope with the situation. So mobile journalism has made a lot of dent in the recent months, which is called Mojo. Mojo has been very liked by people. So there are very small young people who are already doing a lot of mojos in the recently, of course, with the coronavirus pandemic and the crisis, mismanagement, you name it, corruption, and many things. So, and that has a lot of some has definitely earned credibility, but it's also true that this has made a lot of viewers. Has also the mindset has also been changed by this mojo journalism. So you have to. So if you are with the traditional television, if you are traditional with print media, you will be out of circulation. You will be thrown out of the orbit.
When you started out, was it easier to get access to people for interviews? Has it changed in the style of doing an interview for print or online? Have you noticed a change there, or is it basically the same beat, same approach, just a different medium?
To be very precise, yes, it has dramatically changed. It has made a major change, especially during the coronavirus for the last 4 months. The government has made several, reminding the government officers, the government staff, of the duty as a staff of the republic. So that has also given a sort of like a direct warning that you cannot speak to the press. And many institutions like medical hospitals, they have issued an order asking the staffs or the doctors or whoever in the management not to speak with the journalist. So right now it's very difficult to get government people, especially in the medical, the healthcare sector, as well as in the government, to speak to a reporter. And obviously, it is very difficult to even get in touch with the people that you want to interview. It's very difficult because they do not believe you. Who are you on the telephone? So if you want them on the Skype or on Zoom, sometimes it's you can see also in television that he was supposed to be in the Zoom in the television talk show, and then suddenly that person is off, and within of course excuse that my net is down. So that has become very, very difficult. So you have, and I can, of course, there's another funny thing that I think is also happening in other countries, that the government officers sitting on the television with 10 others, all about talking about, maybe not about only about coronavirus, but talking about other issues of management, of say, urban poor, or maybe in the rural people who really badly needs food aid, etc. Then suddenly that officer is silent. And the anchor says, "Sir, can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And he's silent. Oh, sorry. He must be disconnected. His audio is not working. Actually, that's not true. It is just not to speak in this scene, because that will not only add to the controversy, but he may also lose his or her job. So that's also very important. So PIP is very difficult, I understand, and PIP is going to be growing more and more. The freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, the freedom of journalism is becoming, the space is shrinking.
I think, and you're right, I think that's happening around the world as well. And you see it in some of the daily briefings happening in countries right now. There's more of a crackdown on freedom of expression. And I do want to talk more about your organization, why you started it. But before we go there, what story that you covered in your career stands out most to you? What has been the highlight?
Now or before?
Before, any time over the past
Okay.
35 years, the one story.
Okay. I mean, you can understand. I was doing very, very normal routine stories. I was in the city beat, so you can understand. City beat doesn't give much. There is no much excitement, except if there is something which is very exclusive, but that again doesn't. But once it happened with me that because I was a crime reporter, I mean that's how I started as a daily newspaper reporter for New Nation. That's a new newspaper which is published in 1977. I joined a little later, and then I found that one morning, my editor asked me to immediately rush to a hill forest, which is on the southeast. Yes, southwest of Bangladesh. This is hill forest, and there's ethnic communities. They're mostly Mongoloids, but they have different ethnic communities, but they have almost a similar culture. So without even understanding what is really happening, I went there and I found that I'm just going to break a major genocide story. The Bangladesh army, I mean, I belong to this country owns the army. The army had killed more than 200 ethnic communities in one particular place, 200. Of course, the number has been, the local ethnic leaders mentioned many more, but of course, I walked into the how do I say, the killing field, in the killing field, which is not only in Vietnam but also in Bangladesh. And of course, I was remembering many things about the My Lai massacre, the other massacres that I have read in the newspapers. I didn't read books. So I was trying to understand pointers of words, how they explain, how they determine, how to get the audience to believe that what I saw is what I have written. So, but I was very, very young reporter, so I was very confused. So I visited and I was able to talk to I was very lucky that I could talk to the government official who was doing any local investigation. I found a military officer whose regiment is responsible for the massacre. And incidentally, I was told by him, I didn't recognize him. He said, "Oh, you are my neighbor. We were very young when we were in the high school." I said, "Did you study in my high school?" "No, no, no, no. But we didn't study in the same school." So that gave me a little cushion, a sort of little cushion. Talk to him. Then I said, "Okay, hi, hello, how are you? How's everything? How are my friends in the neighbor?" He's from the old city, and I was born and brought up in the old city of Dhaka. And he started talking about his, of course, his memory, his nostalgic days in the old city, because he has moved to the other part of the city. And he joined the military. I was not aware. That's why he was cut off. But he recognized me. So then I said, "Can I speak to you frankly, because you are my neighbor, because we were kids when we became friends." And I said, "What really happened? Tell me very frankly. And if whatever you say, I'm going to write word for word. So you can trust me. Trust me as a neighbor. Don't trust me as a reporter." And he spoke. He spoke detail of what really happened. And I did not take any note. Everything was going into my memory. And I was wondering, if my memory fails, everything is going to be ruined. So everything was in my memory, because I also read some of the investigative journalists who had done something. They did not to alarm that person or the crowd. So they didn't take any notes. They didn't take any photographs. So there was nothing. But again, immediately when I came out of the camp, it was almost dark and the sun was setting. So immediately I took notes while I was climbing down the mountain. A mountain is it's a big hill. So there were several small hills. I had to take a long walk for more than half an hour. By that half an hour, there was another journalist with me, a local journalist. I said, you help me so that I don't fall. You just hold me." I was writing whatever he said, that military commander, he said, everything, everything, even personal discussion. So I need to also mention about the personal discussion, so that I can make the feeling of the audience or the readers that this guy has spoke very frankly, because he was talking about his neighbors in the old city, blah, blah. And I was very lucky that I got a police officer a very senior police officer, who also had helped, rescued, in fact, more than 100 ethnic Congolese. Otherwise, they would have been also slaughtered. Okay, coming back. So I wrote the story. And of course, at that time, I didn't have a typewriter. I didn't carry any typewriter. So I had to write in longhand. And then I was wondering how to send it to Dhaka, because I was almost more than a day trip by bus. So I immediately wrote, and I had to request a driver of bus. "Sir, this is a small token money, which is just a gift. No, there's nothing to do with your charges. Your bus is anyway going to cross the intersection where my newspaper office is. So can you drop it? Can you ask and yell one of the security guard from that newspaper office and hand over this envelope?" And I said, "Oh, yes, of course, of course, of course. No, I don't need money. But why didn't you have tea with me? Did you have breakfast?" Because I went there early in the morning, because I was not sure which driver to get. And it went, and I was not very excited, because I was not sure that the editor will at all agree to publish that story. And of course, I also sent of course, you all will understand. At the time, remember the film? The 36 millimeter film?
Yes.
I still remember.
Yes.
Yes, so I just have also in that envelope. They let the newspaper office develop it and print. The following day, following day, I was just early in the morning taking a morning walk in Chittagong. Chittagong is a port city, far away from the hill forest, hill district. And I just browsing local newspapers, which one to buy. And I suddenly found that my newspaper is visible on the newsstand. And I said, "Oh, you sell this newspaper, this Dhaka newspaper?" "Oh, yes." And once I took it, it's a big screaming headline from the left to the right. And I said, "Oh my God, I'm in deep trouble because this genocide story, they publish it as it is. Of course, you have to edit, but even if you edit, the story was really mine. And they gave a screaming headline, and I was very nervous. At that time, I started feeling, oh, what happens if the military, of course, those who have caused it, and it was a military government at that time, so you have to mind. So I was very nervous. I was hesitating to go back to the hill district. I called my editor and I said, thank you. And said, where are you calling from? I said, I'm in Chittor. No, you're not supposed to be in Chittor. Go back to the hill forest and and tell me about why there is an insurgency, why the military had to fight an insurgents and then they had to slaughter the civilians. I said, the insurgents are not going to talk to me, and I don't know them. I do not know their contacts. But I had to return, fearing of my life that if they have read my newspaper, they definitely would look for me. But within a month, I was able to contact the insurgent leaders. I could contact, but it was a one-way traffic, so you can understand. It's not a two-way traffic. You cannot write letters, or you cannot call them on the phone, or you cannot talk on the radio. So it was a one-way traffic, and I waited and I waited. Then suddenly, the insurgent had sent a messenger with an escort that, can you go with us right now? Without any hesitation, without talking to my newspaper office, I just walked with them. I walked with them means they had to take a boat, and then they returned to inside the hills. And of course, it is another long, and then I was in the guerrilla camp. So I felt like as if I'm back in my war in 1971. But they were more disciplined than us. And I'm sorry if some of my Liberation War veteran would be not very happy with this few words. They were much disciplined, very organized, and they all had schedule from morning till dusk. They have a schedule. So I, of course, had to accommodate to the schedule, like having breakfast or lunch or going to the washroom. So, and of course, it's all temporary. So you don't have, it's not a permanent camp. So they move, and they mention that if we cannot have you for long because this camp is going to move in the next few days, and we are not sure where we are going to move because there's other stakeholders who are responsible for accommodating us to another place, and of course safe from the Bangladesh. So the second story, when it appeared, yes, I was in a guerrilla camp. The first thing that one military officer asked me, can you prove it that you were in the guerrilla camp? I said, yes. How? I said, I have photographs with me, with the guerrilla leaders and the camp. And of course, well, can I see it? I said, I'm sorry, this is already shipped to my newspaper office in the capital, Dhaka. So when it broke, of course, it made a lot of hue and cry. The military was divided. One group wanted to arrest me and harass me and torture me and kill me. And other group said, no, he has done something which is good, because now the people know that we are in the hill tracts. We are not being bitten by mosquitoes. It is a very dangerous place for malaria. They said, we are not dying because of malaria. We are dying because we are fighting guerrillas. So so one group sheltered me, and another group wanted to, of course, they wanted to kill me. They wanted me to shut up. So this has happened, and so these two major stories, in fact, had made me. I didn't have to look back. So, and of course, immediately amnesty met me in Dhaka. The other international BBC contacted me and listened to me, my story, and they did stories based on my what I saw and what I understood. So since then, hill tracks, the Chittagong hill tracks, where there was an insurgency, it became an international, came into the international media, because Guardian, you name it, even in New York Times, many agencies. CNN was not there at the time, but I'm not sure about Azerbaijan. But mostly British and French media was very active, actively covering research, of course, tips and pieces. So this is what really happened. So today, I was in fact not training. In fact, with my experience as an investigative reporter, I don't want to talk about other issues which I did, but this one was a major breakthrough. And of course, an editor stopped giving me assignment.
Mhm.
He said, if you don't know your assignment, then you quit. If you don't know what to write, then you quit. Okay, so I didn't have to talk to my editor. I mean, they were very nice to me since then, because they were not even sure that I actually am going to report on the genocide. They thought there was some problem, a civil strife, a civil problem with the police, or what happens usually with with, with a local issue. They thought that that had happened, but they didn't understand that. But I really admire that editor and that owner of the newspaper. I still salute them, because if they hadn't taken the responsibility, if they hadn't dared to publish my story, I would have been zero. Sandra would have not spoken to me today.
30 years
And
later.
I'm lucky that they have they take the courage to publish the story. So that is very important.
Mhm. The courage, which brings me to your new organization, the Forum for Freedom of Expression, because it was all about freedom of expression when they had the courage to actually publish the stories that you were sending in from the field. So I have a question for you. Why did you start this organization? What made you see the need for this? What the goal of the forum is? And is it Bangladesh, South Asia, or is it global, or all three?
Okay. First, I have to mention that I'm a correspondent for the Reporters Without Borders, RSF, which is based in Paris. You are aware of the media rights organization. So I have been working with them I don't know. Since do you remember that we had a issue with the feminist writer called Taslima Nasreen, who writing that book, Shame? Yes, in fact, RSF came to do an investigation. Investigation means status report on Taslima Nasreen. She was still in Bangladesh. So I had to make an appointment. And then we had to go to, of course, the Department of Journalism to talk to teachers about, and of course, the very senior lawyers who understand Constitution. So we went in, and of course, he met a lot of editors. And everybody was asking, do you have a representative in Bangladesh? Directly, no. Oh, you have a person right now. Saleem is our most favorite person. So whoever he met, he said, how come you're so popular in Bangladesh? And wherever we go, everybody talks about you. I said, look, this is because I was a reporter. And I always had spoken to them, and they always trusted me that they know what I'm going to write, what I shouldn't write. So they are aware of it. So this is a long-term, I would say investment as a reporter. So when I request them for an appointment, they immediately they do. Usually editors are very busy, but still they have given us appointment. And of course, you are from RSF, they would. So he went back, and then he sent me a letter saying, if you are agree, you can be a correspondent. So possibly that was in 1994.
1994? Okay.
94. At that time, let me tell you very frankly, I had no clue what is called press freedom. I had no understanding of what is freedom of expression. I had no idea. I mean, yes, I know journalists have been attacked, they are arrested or harassed, blah, blah, blah. So, but in the time of working with them, I had to do a lot of homework. Like I'm looking into the website of the Committee to Protect Journalists in New York. I had to go through Penn International. I had to browse their website, trying to understand what are the stories or what are the reports they send. By the time I am also growing means growing through my, and today, yes, I can definitely talk about the freedom of expression. But what was happening is, I was very, possibly some of the audience would understand that I am very staunch pro-government, because I'm talking of a woman leader, very proud of my woman leader. I'm just because of Muslim being a woman leader. That's the only issue. Otherwise, nothing to do with it. This government, for good reason, had deleted. I mean, the reason that I am talking about freedom of expression, deleted all the clause. Deleted means just scrap, deleted, you just name it, rewritten, wherever there is anything to do with press freedom, or it really infringes freedom of expression. So the government systematically have deleted everything. The last thing that, of course, is anywhere in the world, like like other harassments. Like one issue is if they have a defamation case. So in defamation case, again, if it is journalist, you cannot arrest that person. You cannot even issue a warrant of arrest. The only thing you can send a warrant of appearance in the court. That's it. And of course, by the time it dissolves, the whole thing, because it takes several months to get the court to get an order, take it to newspaper. By the time the union, the journalist forum, they are already in the street shouting and making a lot of protest, giving petition letters to the government. By the time it fizzles out. So the politicians, who are the major conduit of corruption, who are flouting governance, or flouting transparency and accountability of the elected government, they are not very happy with this. They cannot punish, they cannot even. So what this did was they started assaulting, beating up, breaking their legs, breaking their fingers so that they cannot write. And they said that several incidents that journalists have been beaten means the legs were broken, the hands were broken, and they smashed their fingers so that they cannot write. They always have a old idea of that writing with pen. Of course, pen doesn't exist anymore. I mean, of course, pen is still sold, but of course, everybody uses a keyboard. So, but they still have a traditional, the local politicians still have a tradition, or they have to write because they are also very analog. Analog means they're not digitalized, especially in writing. So what happened that they wanted, they literally, because this government is last, 15 years, almost going to be 15 years, 15 years. So by this time, on the 10th year, the government had to succumb, or to have to agree to the lawmakers to have a law which is called Digital Security Act, which is a draconian law, and that law uh, have given right to the police, especially the police. Even a junior police officer can arrest me without any warrant. They can raid or barge into my apartment. They can seize my laptop, my phone, whatever the thing is used for communication, and of course the Wi-Fi. That's also recently they have also taken over the Wi-Fi, the router. Sorry, the router. So because they don't want to disable you, totally disable you. And of course, it goes to the digital security court, a digital, it's called the cyber security tribunal. And cyber security tribunal, all the judges and whoever is there, don't know ABCD about what is a laptop. They do not know how to write they cannot even write, they can use a keyboard. They have no idea what is YouTube. They have no idea what is social media. The only thing they're based is based on the police report. So they read the police report, and of course, there's a hefty penalty which is very unaffordable for any journalist. But this law has given a wider scope for the lawmakers or the local government representatives in the villages to attack. This is called legal harassment. Legal harassment, because once they file a case, immediately the journalist is arrested. So obviously there is non-bailable. Obviously, there is a pressure from the editors. The editors have all came together. They are already demanding, even in the coronavirus. Let me give you one example. Forget about the previous year. During the coronavirus till the March, till today, July, there is more than 160 cases that have been filed against journalists, netizens, social media, and of course, this includes doctors, this includes even whoever is a writer or a cartoonist. They have already been arrested because they were all being bracketed as criticizing the government, damaging the image of the elected government. The damaging, I don't know what damages the really is that if they have voters, if they have electoral process, how can somebody damage the elected government. But besides that, so these are the main acquisition. So, but it doesn't even determine the court. The police doesn't need to have a specific case written by the company. The only thing is anything which is digital. For example, like if there's a print media, obviously they have a website. Television, this doesn't cover the television. This only digital means anything to do with online, anything to do with online, anything to do with the internet. So, and of course, the platform, social media platforms, whatever other communication platform. So, if you have a print newspaper, if you're very critical of the government cannot do any harassment. Once that news is on that website or used by in a Facebook page, or that newspaper doesn't have a Facebook page, doesn't have a website. Let's take an example. Of course, this is not true, but everybody has something in the social media. But if I, as a normal person, I thought, oh, it's a very interesting article, so I upload it in the social media. Immediately, I'll be arrested, and that newspaper will also be put on the docks because you are the culprit. You are also a culprit. Saleem is number one, and you are number two. Very surprising because I did the hosting, and the other media has done the report. So until that research, so that's why most of the largest circulated print media, they have stopped uploading e-paper. So you cannot prove it. E-paper, the exact the facsimile of the newspaper. So they don't have a newspaper, e-paper. So how can they send them in the court? Many newspapers today, their opinion page, when I look into the opinion page, I always found it is always 12 hours ahead, 12 hours behind. So they wait for reaction from the community, from other sources, and then they upload that opinion page or article. That's very boring, that's very frustrating. But again, to avoid harassment, this is what is happening. So what happened, we have 9 organizations like myself from the Reporters Without Borders, we have Article 19, we have CPJ representative with us, we have International Federation of Journalists representative, we have a representative from PEN International, we have representative from another organization based in Brussels. So, sorry, in Dublin, called, I'm forgetting the name, but okay. So we have them, we have to have a platform because anybody of us can be harassed, anybody can be sued under the Digital Security Act. So we all came together. So let's tune ourselves so that we speak in the same language and in the same voice. So today we are all together to say, demanding on the government that we have to scrap or repeal this draconian law, this Digital Security Act. So this is one area. We are, as an RSF correspondent, incidentally, I am in touch with my South Asian correspondents. We are regularly in touch. We have a group. So every day we write or we seek advice or whatever from other RSF correspondents based in Pakistan, in Kashmir, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, you name it, or even in, of course, also in Southeast Asia. That includes Philippines and Japan. So we are all almost in touch almost every day. Somebody is asking for something. Somebody is requesting for something. Somebody is trying to get a definition of some issue, that is it whether this is right or that is appropriate. So this is how we understand, but nobody has such a worse scenario in any other countries than today's Bangladesh about freedom of expression. You just write a word, you are going to land in prison. Right now, we are fighting to seek bail. I mean that forum. I'm not talking myself. And the forum has another apart from demanding for the repeal of the law. We also give. We do, of course, we cannot afford, but we link up with other human rights lawyers or human rights group to ensure that the person is out of the prison.
So question for you, because Since social media has come about in the early thousands, around 2005, and gained popularity, and this podcast focuses on the power of communication, in a way, there's been a transformation there where information is now in the control of the people. So it's interesting that you're saying, sharing a social media post on a journalist article will get the journalist and the individual who shared in trouble. I think, as you said, and it's an extreme case right now, and you said 140 people have been arrested since March, I believe, in Bangladesh. I'm wondering, just seeing what's happening worldwide, do you think this is going to happen in other countries or become more severe in other countries? This attempt to control the power of information, the power of media, or not just control, but pull it back towards governments, towards official outlets that are out there. Do you see more countries going that direction now that social media has been around for 15 years? People have had more control over sharing information, creating information like we're doing here with the podcast, and also how they receive their information as well. And I think in the beginning there was a lot of freedom there, but you can start seeing things rolling back. And again, like you said with Bangladesh, it's more of an extreme case of that. But do you see a trend, particularly in your region, and if you feel comfortable talking about global, do you see this going in this direction now? Because I think there's a lot of fear from governments.
Yes, the fear is with the government. The fear is actually, if you blame the government, yes, it is right. It's equally true that it is the politicians who are becoming more and more sensitive, or more very sensitive about news that is coming around that person in the media. This is a similar case is happening right now in this coronavirus pandemic in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Nepal, in Sri Lanka, even in Maldives, and also in India. Indian journalists were never heard of, that the editors would be arrested, the editors would be charged with funny cases. Like they don't have but they have other laws. Like in some areas where there is a direct government controlled state, they do have other strict laws. So they are arrested or harassed under the strict law. Even the government in India, even in Afghanistan, also in Sri Lanka, and of course recently in Maldives, they have been arrested because of sexual harassment. I mean, they have been charged or framed for sexual harassing the female colleagues or other female person. So these are also has come out. But again, that the reason was he was charged or framed or arrested because he was writing on the accountability of the healthcare management. So these are the cases in this region. I am sure this is happening all over the world. It's of course it's happening in Africa. It's also happening in Latin America. You name it. And of course, recently, I would not compare with any other country, but I'm talking about the coronavirus. Yes, it is happening all over the world. You just name. Maybe it's not happening in Sweden, in Norway, in Denmark. Maybe it's not happening in Japan, but it is happening as well. You cannot delist a name from the totally. If it will be at least more than 180 countries where there is a problem with this issue. And I believe this year, the Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, Reporters Without Borders, you name any media rights organization, this annual report is going to be voluminous. It will be largest ever they have written possibly in the last 40 or 50 years.
Do you think, if we can look forward, it's hard right now because we're in quite a year in 2020, everyone, but looking forward, what is your hope for media, for journalists, for social media moving forward? I think looking at the trends right now, I wonder if some of these social media organizations will be shut down, and maybe a new form of sharing information will come. But what is your hope in the next 5 or 10 years? What would you like to see on the horizon?
10 years?
How about, let's do 5.
5 is too long.
We can do 2.
Because
how about
every month, every year. Yes, okay. That's will be fair to discuss.
Okay.
Yes, I believe the only thing that is happening right now that's going to be a reflex, that's going to impact in 2021 and or years to come. The massively you will find in South Asia, from Afghanistan to Bangladesh, all the countries here in this region, because we have to keep in touch with others, and we have found that self-censorship is visibly is growing, is visible. You can understand that the journalists have either have to practice self-censorship. Even the gatekeeper or the night editor, they are also doing self-censorship. No, 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 I don't want to take the responsibility. You will find the one major news is all the newspaper have on the first page. You'll find two newspaper have decided not to publish that story. That is, oh, so everything is published. The next day, they publish the inside page because on record they have to have the story. But massive self-censorship is growing. So again, this is not only the fear of the government. It's not only the fear of the politician. There are other non-state actors which are also influencing journalists or the media practitioners to 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 self-censorship. The other non-state actor are the extreme right, the rightist, and the extreme left, and of course the Islamist, the jihadists. So we have this problem in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, and also in Bangladesh. You have a problem because often Islamist organizations they give threats that you cannot publish stories, or if there is a say, let me give you a fair example. One newspaper published a very interesting story about LGBT or gay population, and mentioning that they should have the right, blah blah blah, and they should have, uh, they need to have a space to open up and ventilate their. Immediately, the Islamist organization they rallied and asked the government that newspaper should be shut down. If you don't shut it down, we are going to burn it. And if we will burn it, all the journalists in that office is also going to be in the bonfire. So what do you do? So obviously the government cannot give a protection. How many police are they going to have it in the police? They are possibly coming in maybe thousands or tens of thousands. So how many people they are going to protect? So the government, of course, had no other alternative but this. But immediately they do is to save them from the mullahs, the Islamists, or the extreme rightists. In India, they have a problem with the extreme rightists. They also have a similar problem, and of course it is also maybe in other countries. I'm not very aware, but this is going to have not only a reflection but it's going to impact in the futures to come. So again, our voice are shrinking, our space is also shrinking. So I'm not sure, we cannot think what is 5 years from today, but only there is only one big hope. I always talk about hope. I always give example of Ethiopia, because Ethiopia, anybody you ask about Ethiopia, you are in Africa, you are very aware of that. But talking about anybody in South Asia, you talk to an Indian, you talk to Pakistani or Sri Lanka or Nepal, they will always say, "Oh, they are worse than us. They are starvation, civil war, political crisis, blah blah blah. I mean many things, and they are very groups. That's the only thing they have. Or the healthcare is appalling. The human rights are non-descriptive. But what is going to happen is Ethiopia should be a model for the poor, for the developing countries, or in other words, third world countries. Ethiopia, in the 2 years of the new government, they have turned around. There is absolutely democracy. There is absolute freedom of press. No journalist has been arrested in the last 2 years since the new government, led by again a woman. she has scrapped all the laws. I'm very surprised that lady, who is the present prime minister, was a minister in the previous government. So she possibly has taken lesson, or her government has taken lesson from the previous government. But no, we shouldn't do this. So and she has opened the door of the prison to let all the political prisoners to walk out freely. Now, if you are a political prisoner, you are free to go. If you have had a crime, of course you are still you have to be in prison. So that is given a big, wider, a lot of confidence among the people. It takes time. 2 years is a very small time. In the next few years, that is going to be, has to be a role model. See, Ethiopia is going to be a role model, not only for journalism, I mean, freedom of expression, but also for a democratic and accountable and transparent government.
Thank you so much. So I think this is all very, I found it fascinating. I'm sure the listeners are going to find this fascinating as well. If they want to learn more about Bangladesh, you mentioned Amnesty International and Reporters Without Borders in terms of freedom of expression. Any place else you'd like to direct readers or our listeners to learn more about Bangladesh and the media in Bangladesh?
Well, if you are you talking about media only?
Media, but just in general as well.
Okay, okay. One thing which is very important that maybe the people who are in the Gulf, I mean, if somebody is listening in the Gulf, the Arab countries, somebody is listening us in Europe, like in Italy, Spain, France, Germany, I mean, and of course South Korea, Japan, Malaysia. Why I'm talking about it? There are a huge number of Bangladeshi population who are migrant laborers in the Gulf. The Bangladesh is in some countries they are second, in most of the current countries in the Arab are the third population, migrant population. So everybody in that Arab countries knows Bangladesh by one name. So Bangladesh, of course, they understand Bangladesh is a country where they supply of laborers to do all the dirty works. I mean, of course, dirty work. And of course, in South Korea, because they're one of the major, I mean, the construction business is, of course, the major construction. The second largest construction workers are from Bangladesh. So South Korea and also equally in Japan. Japan gave a clean, I mean, slate. On a clean slate, they mentioned that Bangladesh are allowed to stay in Japan, not even have a mind to settle, not have a mind to have a permanent residency, but they will never get a citizenship, but they can stay as long as they want. So that all happened because of the construction lobby in Japan and of course in South Korea. Similarly in Malaysia, all the dirty works, the street cleaning, the garbage, you just name anything, or the washroom in the shopping mall is all Bangladeshi. So when I went to Malaysia, everywhere I was speaking in my language without any hesitation, because somebody will understand. And they say, oh, you're from Bangladesh. So that is very important. That is one of the reasons that most people know about Bangladesh. Bangladesh is actually not here. But how does US know? United States know about Bangladesh? Because of our garments. Walmart is garments. All the garments in Walmart is sold mostly from Bangladesh. The people know about Bangladesh because of the garments. So when there was a coronavirus and the lockdown or the home quarantine, immediately the Americans, of course, and some European countries did intervene, did want to ask what is the status of the garments workers. So there are different clouds of Bangladesh. So this is and another I mean, I know you are in Africa. Cricket may not be a popular game in North America and also in Africa, but it is very popular in Pakistan, India, of course, and of course in New Zealand, Australia, you name England, and recently Canada is also in the scenario. So Bangladesh has done very well in the world champion cricket, because cricket is we are very young in terms of playing in cricket, the world of cricket. So that is one area that people know about Bangladesh, and you will often find even the movies. Recently, I saw a movie. There was a Hollywood movie, not a Bollywood, a Hollywood movie. They mentioned, "Oh, you want to play cricket with Bangladesh?" So, what are you doing? Making fun of it of us? It's not really a good year, but an interesting example of Bangladesh, because once the last thing is, yes, Kissinger mentioned that Bangladesh is a bottomless basket, because Bangladesh, after the war, it was a devastated country. You can say war ravaged, the economy has collapsed, or the industries are being bombed or totally discarded. The people are totally, there were 10 million refugees which has walked into India. They have returning back. So Bangladesh wanted help, of course, food aid. And the United States said, Bangladesh is a bottomless basket. I mean, whatever you put in the basket is going to fall away. So we have to continue filling up the basket. Today, Bangladesh no more a bottomless basket. Bangladesh doesn't seek food aid. You have worked in Bangladesh. Bangladesh, of course, has been trying to organize food security that you have worked with in Bangladesh. So that is one area, is a very plus point. Another very interesting thing that you must have noticed, the women's empowerment. This is no other Muslim country, a Muslim majority country, can boast of having millions of women who are self-sufficient. They don't, sorry to say this, that they don't care about their husband or their male chauvinist guardians. No, that's not fair to mention that. But they are self-sufficient, and whoever has this about it's estimated by Professor Mohammed Yunus, Nobel laureate, that right now 60 million women have walked out of poverty. That's the biggest. That many other countries can imagine. Of course, it is more than 25 years of the exercise. So it's Grameen Bank is not only the only partner. BRAC has been a major partner. So you have worked with BRAC. So that is one major area that Bangladesh has been able to organize. So Bangladesh at the village, rural areas, is not like other rural areas. If you walk to a rural area, when I was very young, when I used to go to a rural Bangladesh, women used to flee. Once they hear a voice of a maid, or they see somebody from a city in their village, the woman used to rush. I mean, it's a taboo to have a city boy staring at them, or they are looking at us. Today, you have gone to a village. They will talk to you, whether you are a foreigner, you are a non-foreigner. It doesn't matter. You are a journalist. They speak, and they speak very well. They are very articulate about it. This all happened because of women empowerment, and women empowerment is a very positive news. And the last thing I would tell you is I was in Pakistan, and I was returning from Karachi because we had a direct flight only from Karachi. Karachi, I was early in the morning. Early in the morning is crack of the dawn. I took a taxi and I was going to the airport. The taxi driver casually asked, "Sir, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going home." He said, "Where is your home?" I said, "My home is in Bangladesh." "Oh, Bangladesh." And he looked, "Oh, Bangladesh. Oh, I heard that everything is working very fine. Your economy is much, much better than us. Blah, 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 many things." And then he said, "But one thing is very, very bad." "Bad? What is bad?" "Oh, your woman, the Muslim woman in Bangladesh, they handle money. Handle means they count money." "Oh, yes, sorry." He said, "They count money." I said, "What's the problem in counting money? You will not count money if you go to a shop and you buy something. So you will not count how much money they have returned, or how much money they have paid." "No, sir. According to Quran, women are not supposed to touch money." I said, "Excuse me, can you please be on your side of the road? I want to get down. I don't want to go to the airport in your car, because you don't understand the basic ABCD of women's empowerment. You do not understand what is Grameen Bank is doing. You do not know what BRAC is doing. You should be lucky if BRAC comes to Bangladesh or to Pakistan." And very interesting, BRAC is now working in Pakistan. BRAC has been already working in Afghanistan, and they're doing very good. And the new government has refused BRAC to pack up and return to Bangladesh. They said, "No, you cannot." But they have given more two provinces. One is Helmand province, where there was a lot of trouble. The Taliban were very active in Helmand, and three BRAC education staff was shot and killed. One was, of course, kidnapped and sought for money ransom, and the US Army refused to negotiate with the Taliban, and that BRAC officer was shot. But apart from that, so today, whereas we are a bottomless basket, today BRAC is working in Haiti, you name a country, even Somalia, BRAC is there. You name a country where Bangladesh is, and you will find many, hundreds of UN, wherever UN is going to a very troubled country, you will find Bangladesh is there. And the last thing is, if there is a trouble, if there is a civil war, at the end of the civil war, 100% guaranteed that Bangladesh troops will be there for peacekeeping. That is a guarantee, because Bangladesh is the largest contributor in peacekeeping. So there are, apart from few things, yes, we have problems. I admit, even the government admits. The Prime Minister, the Lady Prime Minister, she also admits, yes, we have problems. The problem is that everybody, there's poor government. She agrees with that. I also agree. We also protest. There is a poor governance. So the governance has not been able to, because if the rogue elements are inside the government, are politicians, so it is very difficult for a government to organize a government to really practice democracy. And do you remember, only 50 years ago, no, 60 years ago, France first allowed women to go and go for vote. Just imagine, just when you were just born, after we were born, or maybe we just after we were born, the woman has gone to. In the United States, after 100 years, women went to vote. So you have to allow Bangladesh to grow. So one day, yes, people do have, people do accept women leadership. So you will find in the villages, I think you have found in the local government election, the village election, you will find many places, at least 120 elected representatives are women. I mean, they say chairman of a union council, union means village council, is headed by a woman. So somebody, the male must have voted. Definitely that woman candidate may not have. I doubt whether they have paid everybody. Can you please vote for me? That's very difficult, and especially in the village, because everybody knows everybody. So this is so in the next 2 years, I believe the situation is going to be much better. Many corporates have started hiring women CEO, which is very rare. Even the Microsoft, they had a woman CEO in Bangladesh, and she's from Bangladesh. And she's born in Bangladesh, ancestors she's raised in United States, studied in United States. That's studied in Columbia University. That's a different issue. But they have private banks have started hiring women top bankers. I mean, the banking. This is going to take time. If this government, this woman prime minister is here for 15 years, and it's only recently, so it will take time. So I believe the next generation of politicians, we are hoping that the next generation of politicians will be much more educated. They have studied mostly abroad or studied in one of the best schools. They will be able to come to politics, and I believe they will understand the definition of democracy. They will understand what is freedom of expression. They will understand what is accountability and transparency.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. I just want to clarify, because you mentioned BRAC a few times, which is BRAC. It's actually one of the biggest international development organizations in the world. What does it stand for, Saleem, so the audience knows?
Actually, that name has vanished. I mean,
it has. Okay, they don't call it BRAC anymore?
So it is now, the acronym has become a name.
It has? Okay.
Yes, it's called Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee. It was a committee.
I had no idea.
It was first formed in the war as to help the refugees. So BRAC came to Bangladesh. Which the founder, the Fazl Hussain Abed. Have you met him? Did you meet him?
I think I did when I was at
Yes, you did. Yes, you must have met him. Because Fazl Hussain Abed was a naval architect. He studied in England. He was very young when the parents migrated to England. So he studied naval architecture, and he was practicing naval architecture. Suddenly he heard that there were millions of refugees fleeing into India in 1971 war. So, of course, to escape genocide. The first thing first, he wanted to know about what happened to his village where his parents were born. He was not born in that village. So where his parents were. And of course he got contacts and he could understand the entire village has either they have many of them has been killed or majority have left and gone to India. So yes, India. So he immediately rushed to India, of course, and then he went to the border and he located those people. And immediately they wanted, of course, food aid and health care. And of course, winter is coming, so they need warm clothes. And in the Indian side, it is cold, colder than it is Bangladesh. So he went back to England. He sold his property, a house, a big house, a posh house, in the upstate, in London. He sold his house. He took away all the bad money, the account from his account. And his wife thought, "You are a mad guy. A mad guy would definitely do this. Sell everything and take out all the money from the bank." And he went to his company where he worked and he said, "How much money can I have from you?" He said, "Why do you want this money?" "Well, I want to quit. I'm going to quit. I'm going back to Bangladesh. I have to help the refugees. And I'm not sure when I'm going to come back because it depends all on the independence of Bangladesh." And there's no clue because war was going on for 25 years. So everybody thought this is going to take 25 years to liberate the country called Bangladesh. So he sold, and the first thing his wife divorced him. That is a story. He told me his wife divorced because he thought his husband is a mad guy. Well, she was an English woman, so obviously the English woman cannot understand the mindset of the people in this region. So that is what happened. Then he went back to England and he collected money and fundraising from the individual donors. And then he had to have a committee, Bangladesh Rural Advancement. So had to have the Rural Advancement Committee. But it was first they wanted to have a name of organization, relief organization or something, but they didn't agree. But said no, they have to think. Fazl Saab told them, "We have to think of tomorrow." They, presuming that the Bangladesh is independent. So we have to have those people to come back to the village and they have to rehabilitate. So that's why the Rural Advancement Committee. But of course, it's no more a committee, and those people have more majority have died. All of them has died. The first committee, which is mostly by of course British citizens. So those have died, and of course everything has. But I have written an obituary. I'm going to send it to you. When Fazl Abed died, I wrote an obituary, and I mentioned that I am not the right person to write an obituary, but I still have to write because a person cannot be a great person overnight by training. No, you have to have a mindset. You have to have a positive mindset. And I mentioned that I met him in 73, 74, just after the war. We had a one-room office. That office is now Arong's outlet. So it is history. So that house, so the owner of that house, he's not the owner, I mean, he's a parental property. The owner of the house, the present owner of the house is my school friend. So I had to call him and said, "I need the number of the house number of the house." And I said, "What's the status?" He said, Fazl Abed had long before had bought it. They bought the property because they want their own building. He first wanted to have a BRAC building there, but they found that BRAC is growing so rapidly, so they had to move to a new building that you have visited. BRAC was the only organization which had a new development strategy. That's why it has grown. And BRAC used to always, whenever anybody was to speak to him, and the first thing he mentioned think about okay, I know what you're doing today. Saleem, I know what you're doing today. You're a journalist. But what are you going to do tomorrow? Tomorrow I don't have any appointment. And I'm not talking about tomorrow. Future. And that is how he talks to people. That's how. And incidentally, I'm an Ashoka fellow, and he was in the board. He and Professor Mohammed Yunus, another Nobel laureate, we were there on the board of selection from Bangladesh. Ashoka Fellowship is given from a foundation in Washington, D.C., which is based in Arlington. But at that particular station, that Arlington station is there. They're on 17th floor. It's the head office of the Ashoka Foundation. So what I'm saying, I was on that, of course, as a candidate, I was in the interview board. Unfortunately, Professor Yunus was abroad, so he couldn't attend that interview board. Professor Hassan Abed was there. So when I walked in, I say, "Hello, sir. Good evening." It was evening because whole day they were having interviews. So my interview was at 6 o'clock in the evening. I said, "Good evening. Can I come in?" And Hazrat Abed was looking at the list. Saleem Samad, right? I said, "Yes." His name looks very familiar. He was not looking at me. Then I said, "Sir, this is me." "Oh, I know about your work." And he knows that my work is journalism, nothing else. He said, "Oh, I know you by your work." And he told, and said, I better go to another appointment. So I said, "Sir, you are giving a negative message to the other board members. They may think that you are not interested to go ahead with my interview." Then he said, "I know Salim very well. If I had been in the meeting, I would have definitely had selected him. But it's all upon you to decide whether you want to select him. But I am familiar with his work." That is what I wrote. That he knew me not very, we never met regularly. We often not met only very few times, only for a few minutes, and he remembered everything. But that is a reflection. I said, you cannot be a great guy overnight. We have to be something that appreciating a small reporter like me. I was very young. It was in 1990. I was very young. I said, appreciating a reporter that I had been at that time, in fact, doing the work like going to district small towns and no funding, no and nothing. No, of course, whatever I did was from my pocket. I was, but it was very less. I used to tell the press club, "Can you arrange an accommodation for me?" So I used to go to the press club, get the members, and talk about environment and development. And of course, if I had time, I also used to talk about investigative journalism. But these are basic. I do need to go to jargons, not theories. So that is what I was given like an appreciation of my work as an Ashoka Fellowship for 3 years. And Fazl Hassan Abid was, in fact, if he hadn't been on that day, I would have possibly wouldn't have been selected.
That's wonderful. What a great story. And I just, as you were talking, I looked up BRAC online. So if you're interested, BRAC, it's BRAC.net, and you can learn all about this amazing organization and its influence around the world. And also you can read about Bangladesh as well. It's an extraordinary country. As Saleem mentioned, I'd had the opportunity to work there and visit, and it is one of my favorite countries that I've visited so far, and such amazing people. And the ladies were much more outspoken than me, so he's absolutely right in terms of empowerment of women in Bangladesh. So thank you so much, Saleem. It's been wonderful seeing you, chatting with you, learning more about you. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure the audience is going to find this really motivational and interesting.
Thank you very much. And thank you for allowing me to speak to the audience.